Today, we're doing something a little bit different. We're taking a step back from the constant noise of the modern world to embark on a really quiet, deeply contemplative journey. We're going to explore an ancient text that doesn't just, tell a story. It actually attempts to map the very landscape of the soul. We're venturing into a highly mystical branch of early Christian thought, all through the lens of the Gospel of Thomas. Okay, let's dive into this. He who seeks, let him not cease seeking until he finds, and when he finds, he will be troubled, and when he is troubled, he will be amazed, and he will reign over the all. Wow. These definitely aren't the familiar words you're going to hear in a standard Sunday sermon, right? This is Logion 2, the second saying from the Gospel of Thomas, and it's just this immediate, powerful invitation into a profound enigma, really challenging us to relentlessly look inward. Section 1, the Forgotten Scriptures. So, to truly understand Thomas, we first need to look at the incredibly vibrant era of ancient texts that it actually came from. Texts like the Gospel of Thomas belong to a category called the Pseudepigrapha. Basically, these are ancient writings written under a false title, usually attributed to a famous biblical figure by an anonymous author. They were huge at the time. Take the Book of Enoch, for instance, which was widely read and highly revered. But here's the thing. Where Enoch mapped out this vast external cosmology of angels and heavens, Thomas maps the hidden inner cosmos. They offer two very different types of revelation, but both were absolutely a part of this giant, diverse spiritual conversation long before the official boundaries of Scripture were strictly closed. Just to put this into perspective, for centuries, incredibly diverse theologies flourished right side by side. The Hebrew canon began its evolution way back in the 6th century BCE during the Babylonian exile, and it was basically fixed around the 1st century CE. But the New Testament canon, that wasn't definitively settled until the 4th century CE. That is a massive chunk of time. Before those final lines were drawn, a tremendous wealth of totally different spiritual ideas and scriptures were just circulating freely. Section 2, Thomas, the Mystic Twin. All right, now that we've set the historical stage, let's actually meet the enigmatic figure at the center of our explainer. Judas Thomas is frequently referred to as Didymus, which literally means the twin. Now, historically, scholars debate his actual relationship with Jesus, but in early Syrian Christian tradition, he was revered as his literal identical twin brother. In texts like the Acts of Thomas, their physical appearances and their spiritual roles are so identical that they completely confuse the people they encounter. They're practically interchangeable. And this brilliantly illustrates the stark contrast and how he's remembered across different traditions. Think about it. We usually remember Thomas from the canonical book of John, where he's doubting Thomas, totally defined by his need to reach out and physically touch the wounds. That desire for tangible, physical proof, it echoes centuries later in the whole fascination with relics, like the Shroud of Turin, a physical imprint of the divine. But the Thomas of the mystical tradition, he doesn't seek validation in material relics or physical proof at all. Instead, he serves as a mystical mirror. In this much deeper framework, being the twin isn't just some biological claim. It is a profound metaphor. Just as the Shroud of Turin is believed to bear a physical imprint of Christ, Thomas actually represents our potential to bear the spiritual imprint of the divine. He is the ultimate symbol of humanity realizing its true, original spiritual nature. He reflects the light from within, completely free from the illusions of the material world. Section 3, the Secret Sayings. Which brings us directly to the famous text that bears his name. Just take a look at the very opening lines. These are the secret words which the living Jesus spoke and which Didymus Judas Thomas wrote down. Notice that word right there, secret. In the canonical Gospels, Jesus is constantly portrayed teaching publicly, right? Preaching to massive crowds on mounts and shorelines. But here, the word secret signals an immediate, hard departure. This isn't about public instruction. It signals an intensely introspective pursuit of hidden knowledge meant specifically for the solitary seeker. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how entirely different the structure of Thomas's is from the canonical Gospels. The canonical texts are totally driven by historical narrative. They're chronicles of miracles, public teachings, and of course, the events of the Passion and Resurrection. The Gospel of Thomas strips literally all of that away. There is no storyline, there are no miracles, no passion narrative whatsoever. It is simply an anthology of 114 disconnected sayings, focusing purely on raw, contemplative wisdom. So, the crucial point is how this structural shift fundamentally transforms the theology itself. While the canonical tradition strongly emphasizes obedient faith and looking forward to an apocalyptic future kingdom, Thomas demands self-knowledge. It focuses entirely on understanding hidden truths and realizing a present inner kingdom. In this worldview, salvation isn't some rescue mission coming from above. It's an internal awakening to your own pre-existing divine nature. Section 4. Mapping the Inner Kingdom. Let's look a little closer at exactly how the text guides the reader toward that profound awakening. Logion 1, literally the very first saying, states, "Whoever finds the interpretation of the sayings will not experience death." Now, the canonical Gospel of John tells believers that whoever keeps the word will not taste death, which implies obedience and faith. But Thomas demands interpretation. In this specific context, the very act of wrestling with these riddles, really turning them over in your mind and finding their hidden meaning, that is the mechanism of salvation. Interpreting the sayings is an act of spiritual awakening all on its own. And what you awaken to is a massive core truth. The kingdom of heaven is a present, spiritual reality right within you. The Gospel of Thomas even subtly alters familiar parables just to drive this point home. For example, in the canonical parable of the net, the story is a grand allegory for the final judgment of all humanity. But in Thomas's version, a fisherman pulls up a net, finds one large fish, and effortlessly throws all the little fish back into the water just to keep that one large one. The focus shifts entirely to the solitary enlightened seeker recognizing their own supreme inner value over all the distractions of the material world. Section 5. The Return to Light. Let's move to and see how this builds into what is honestly one of the most stunning allegories in all of early Christian literature. To truly grasp the emotional weight of this inward journey, we look to the Song of the Pearl. It's this celebrated poem embedded within the related Acts of Thomas. Much like the familiar story of the prodigal son, it's a totally mesmerizing allegory about a prince who leaves his heavenly home to retrieve a pearl from Egypt. But the catch is, upon arriving, he falls into a deep sleep and completely forgets his true identity. It is just such a rich metaphor about losing and eventually recovering our divine origin. The poem beautifully traces this soul's journey. Step 1, the prince loses his royal robe, which symbolizes the pure image of God. Step 2, he wanders the material world in a profound slumber of spiritual forgetfulness. And finally, step 3, he receives a letter from home, remembers the light, defeats the serpent to claim the pearl, and returns to the heavenly kingdom. It's the absolute classic Gnostic arc, from material ignorance straight back to glorious heavenly union. Just listen to this climax. It perfectly captures the moment the prince is finally reunited with his royal robe. I clothed myself with it and mounted up to the gate of greeting and homage. I bowed my head and worshipped. You can really feel the ultimate joy of the soul reclaiming its true spiritual twin, right? Putting back on the luminous image of the divine and stepping fully, finally, into the light of their own awakening. And that brings us to our final thought for today's explainer. The Gospel of Thomas isn't asking you to look backward at historical events, and it's not asking you to look forward to some apocalyptic future either. It is asking you to look right here, right now. If the kingdom of heaven is indeed a present spiritual reality, an image of the divine just waiting to be uncovered within you, where are you searching for your inner right? Thank you so much for exploring this incredible mystery with me today. Keep seeking, keep interpreting, and as always, keep learning.